Just because something was the first doesn't automatically mean that it's still an example of the best. Hello, Catholic Controversy here, and when I was in English class, I remember that a lot of the books that we ended up reading were historically significant. These were books that pioneered a genre. They pioneered something about them, a criticism, a commentary, a character type, something along those lines. To where it was because they were the first to do it, that's why we still had to know about it. And a lot of the lessons were about how it relates to the past, why this was significant back then, why people were amazed by it back then, why something like this had never been tried back then, and the historical context of said work. And I always felt that that was not a very good reason for why we should be reading these books. We should be reading them because they are just objectively good. You could find stuff like that, like Shakespeare, where, he does really well job. He's an amazing writer. He's just his use of language is just amazing. But there's a lot of other books, such as Catcher in the Rye, that don't really hold up. Yeah, they might have innovated, they might have done something very interesting for the time, and we might still be feeling the effects of them today, but that doesn't mean that they're still the best example. That doesn't mean that they are still the reason that they've done it the best, and that we should still be learning about them outside of just sort of footnotes in history. They shouldn't be held up as this prime example of the use of whatever they're trying to talk about. And I always kind of struggled to find really good examples of that because, with technology, it's easy. I mean, cell phones, these have come a long ways from the old bricks that had 20 minutes of battery life. Now they can go for days and you can play games on them. You can get on the internet. You can take pictures. They've just little pocket computers, which is great. But I kind of struggled to find a good media example of this. Something that really painted this concept perfectly. And that was until I watched this video about Super Smash Brothers. Link below. It's a pretty awesome video. But what he did and how he went into what Super Smash Brothers is in the history, it really hit me and is the perfect example of what I've been trying to think of and explain for probably close to 12 years now, 13 years, maybe even 14 before I even started making online content. And that is Smash Brothers 64. This is my original copy. I played this all the time as a kid, and it's really fun. It's great. It pioneered a genre. It had 14 different characters that you could play as from across all the different Nintendo companies and IP. You had Mario, Pikachu, Samus, Link, Kirby, Jigglypuff, Captain Falcon, Ness from Earthbound. It was awesome, and they had levels that would match them, and it was a kind of revolutionary brand new fighting game style where the point wasn't to just knock out your opponent and take all their HP. No, it was to throw them off the side of the screen. And it was brand new. It was revolutionary. No one had ever really seen something like this before. But it was limited. The character models weren't the best, even for Nintendo 64 standards. The single player mode was very limited. It was, I think, like a dozen different fights that you go through. And they were always the exact same fights every single time, no matter which character you played as or how many times you played it. And there was multiplayer, and that was kind of it. But, for what it was pretty great. But then this came along, Super Smash Bros. Melee. It did everything Super Smash Bros. Did, but better. Instead of just 12 characters, there was like 24 characters or something like that. It was a lot more. You could play as Bowser. You could play as Ganondorf. You could play as the Ice Climbers. You could play as Game & Watch. And you could play as some Japanese-only characters from Fire Emblem of Roy and Marth. And the classic mode, the just single player where you just go through a bunch of different battles, it was random every time. You'd fight different characters every single time, which made it interesting. It wasn't the same playthrough every single time that you played it. It was different. And that made it pretty interesting. Then there was also an adventure mode where you can then go through a little adventure, play as different characters, and do different battles, but there was kind of a story with it. And throughout the game, you could collect trophies. There was more collectibles. There was more unlockables. There was a tournament mode. And there was more that you could do with multiplayer. It really improved on it. And didn't leave a whole lot of reason to come back to this. And then you get later sequels. Here I got Smash for Wii U. This one had 8-player multiplayer. This one had amiibo support, so you could train up specific computer characters so they were different. And you felt a use to them. It wasn't just going up against the same computer players every single time. There was online on this. There was just more that you could do. There was downloadable characters. You could get new characters. Something that wasn't even possible with this. And just other modes, and it had something different. And there was innovation. There was improvements. Yeah, it was still the same concept of beat up characters and Nintendo characters and try to throw them off the side of the screen, but it kept doing things with it. It kept improving upon it. It kept giving you more. And it didn't leave a whole lot to go back to this. This game right here, it doesn't matter that this has the same characters in it. It does a whole lot more. It does everything that this game can do and more. Same for this one. Same for Smash Ultimate. Same for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And that's the perfect example of media just not always being the best just because it was first. This is still a good game. No one's denying that this is good. But if you're going to be playing a Smash Brothers game, this isn't the one that you're going to go to. You're going to go to Smash for Wii U, Smash Brothers Melee, Smash Brothers Brawl, Project M, Smash Brothers Ultimate. You're not going to be going back to Super Smash Bros. 64. This is something that you just kind of play just as a little bit of a novelty, but it's been relegated to a footnote in history because so many later iterations of it did what it did, but so much better. And that's what we need to ask from Lit Class. We need to ask for books that are just good. Just because Brighton Beach Memoirs was the first to really showcase Jewish family during World War II or whatever, and just day-to-day life as opposed to like being in Nazi Germany or whatever. I don't really know what we were supposed to learn with Brighton Beach Memoirs and why it was historically significant, but I remember it was supposed to be historically significant. But, there's probably some better material out there than that. If you know, you know. Same for Catcher in the Rye. I mean, just because like a South Park probably owes its ability to be edgy and whatnot and show kids as they are or whatever to Catcher in the Rye doesn't mean that Catcher in the Rye is better than South Park by any means. So yeah, that's just what it is. It's like whenever you hear, oh, well, this was the first, therefore this is why it's still significant and important. Just look at Super Smash Bros. 64. It was first, but people forget about it. This has been Cat the Controversy signing off. And God bless you.